Mira Business FM. The sound of success.
Spirit Business FM, it's the morning drive with me, Tim Elliott. So what today's economy, global economy, means for your money, that is next. From interest rates to inflation to global uncertainty, what do headlines about the economy actually mean for your money? If you could read between the lines, it can help. With me is somebody who manages money across borders, works closely with business leaders to turn complex global trends into practical financial decisions. Payal Trehan is a partner and Senior Investment Strategist with the Michele Carby Practice. Payal, it's nice to meet you.
Great to be here, Tim. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. It's good to have you here. Makes a change from Michele. Don't tell her I told you that. But anyway, we'll go from there. Look, keep it on the down low. When people hear those two words, global economy, particularly at a time like where we are now at this point in history, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot to take in. There's so much to think about. Taking into account where we are now, I'm going to ask you a really difficult question to start with, and I apologize, so settle in. What's the one thing professionals should understand right now when somebody says to them, well, the global economy, ... Do you think?
Well, that's a packed one.
It is, isn't it?
I think, as complex as the question is, the answer is pretty basic, which is when you're talking about global economy, I think the most important thing to understand is it's the interconnectedness between you and someone else, between markets and supply chains. So as much as you want to complexify the answer, it's actually pretty basic. It's about how do events in one part of the world affect me today where I am. And I think what's kind of created a little bit more complexity in our world today is the fact that information is just so accessible to us.
It really is, yeah.
You got your smartphone, you're walking pretty much from your apartment down to your car, and you know what's happened. Right? So I think that instant gratification, which is a great thing, by the way, allows you to just kind of understand. Before you've kind of walked into the doors of your office, oh my God, this has happened, and it's unfolding, it's panic alert. Situations like these always happened in the past. Global uncertainty isn't something that's a new phenomenon today. It's always been there. What's new is today we just hear about it faster, more effectively, and that's a good thing, a bad thing. It's certainly a stressful thing.
Well, it is, and I mean, it's delivered directly to your phone now.
Yeah.
So it's like being slapped around the face with a wet fish. Here it is, and here's where we are. So it's almost as though everything is amped up. It's no better or worse than it was. You could argue that maybe at the moment the world is slightly less predictable because President Trump is an unpredictable person, whatever you think of him. But I suppose it's kind of the new normal, really.
It's, you know what, again, it kind of goes back to that. Uncertainty is not new. What is new is exactly what you've said. It's the pace and the magnitude at which things are evolving. I mean, think about it this way, right? You live in a world which is pre-COVID and post-COVID. And post-COVID, the amount of things that have happened just feel like, gosh, this should have been a decade. But it's not. It's 5 years. And when you think about it, you had the Russia-Ukraine situation, you had the Middle East tension, you've now hit with global tariffs all around, and then you've kind of just woken up and you've just kind of, wiped your eyes from the New Year's this year, and you've got a Venezuela situation already, and now you've got a brewing Greenland situation. So all of these things, it turns the volume up just a little bit more than, what's a bit manageable. And I think that perhaps is probably what does feel a bit overwhelming is how do I navigate around stuff that's just happening far too frequently? But I also think while we're talking about, the global uncertainty side of things, I think what probably has been the single most challenging and constructive factor in probably the last 3 years is AI. Right? And it's no longer just thinking about a world where it's like, how do I how do I circumvent around the geopolitical issues, but it's also around how do I integrate this mammoth of a technology to either constructively become a part of my workforce, or is it going to replace me? And how do I navigate and circumvent around that? So you can definitely see how that uncertainty is amped up in individuals, in businesses, decision makers, investors. It's all around.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? We're in this technology age, and we have this new tech coming. Once the AI moment is over, we will get the quantum moment, and then whatever we get after that. So there's always something to think about. But the issue with all of this is, with this uncertainty, is what it means for a lot of people is this is just too hard, and you kind of put your personal finances on a back burner, I think, because it's and you maybe take the safe option, or maybe don't explore the avenues that you could explore. And I think that's a very real feeling with people that, I don't know how to do it. It's very technical. And what's crypto, and how does Bitcoin work, and what does it all mean, and all of that. And I'm in with that mix of people as well, because I find it as overwhelming as anybody. So what's happening globally, that kind of omnipresent uncertainty of this overload of information, really can have an adverse effect on personal finances, on the way people invest.
It can, but it can also do the opposite. So you have the market is kind of, or the investor pool is a little bit kind of split up on this, right? Where on one side you're looking at this and you're thinking, yeah, I don't like it. It scares me a little bit, the uncertainty of what's happening. There's another side of the market that's looking at this and saying, oh, well, hang on a minute, there might be opportunities over here. There might be areas that, I'd like to explore further over here. So if we're looking at geopolitical tensions, are there certain areas that might do well? I mean, gold today has hit 5,000. You have a lot of investors that probably park their money over there and make money out of that uncertainty. So uncertainty for the masses, and I'll say this, in the nicest possible way, is for the masses that are unaware of what uncertainty can bring to you in terms of opportunities. The natural response is, let me run for the hills. Let me kind of put my head down and kind of ignore it. But that's where the educated professionals come in, and that's where it's so important for you to buddy up with an advisor that you trust, get a professional to look at your portfolio, and help navigate you through these times in a constructive way, in a way that's palatable for you. But I've said this, I said this in the global financial crisis as well, is never look at something in a very closed and zoom-in view. When you're looking at personal financial decisions or the markets, probably the best advice I can give anyone is take a breath, step back, zoom out, and look at things in a larger scale picture. The markets will probably be down for 1 or 2 years, but it's very unlikely that majority of the market will stay underwater for 5 years. Virtually doesn't happen. So if you've done your groundwork right, this is a great opportunity.
This is the mindset you have to kind of accept, isn't it? That when you think everything's gone crazy and the markets are tanking, that there's an opportunity there. And
Always.
to be able to, step back and hopefully be dispassionate about it, to not be emotional about it. That's where you have to get to, I think. And I think that's the difference between financial professionals and bods like me, to be honest. But why should business professionals or just working people really care about economic events outside of their home country? Why do you need to take that wider view?
Because I think it really helps in decision making all over. I mean, if you think about, right from your grassroots level decisions, interest rates. Interest rates affect you because it helps you decide, is this the right time for me to step into the property market? Is this the right time for me to think about a mortgage? Is it going to get a bit cheaper? Inflation, such an important fact and so underrated, because it helps you understand, is this particularly the right time for me to be spending money or saving money? Yeah. If the prices of things are going up, am I wiser kind of maybe amping up my investment portfolio a bit more and lowering down my spending portfolio? Can those Gucci shoes wait, for the next bonus check, and maybe I'll buy some Nvidia today instead? Those are decisions that, it's very helpful to make. But it's also about, it's understanding specifically, and I say this in Dubai a lot, is majority of the people that live and work here are expats. And a lot of times people, when I sit with clients and I ask about, oh, are you sending money back home? And the answer is, yeah, I support my family back home in some way or the other. Great. Have you got a currency broker? No, I haven't.
Mm.
Well, that's an important thing to have because you're living here. Sure, you don't think about it. The dirham's pegged to the dollar, but the dirham may not be pegged to your home currency. So at some point, it's important to think about these decisions because compounded, they could mean a lot over your 20, 25-year working life. Sure, as an isolated event, as a one-off, maybe nothing. But 20, 25 years of sending money home at a more expensive currency rate, it could amount to something.
Yeah, it makes a good point, to be fair. You've used some really good points this morning, actually. You've just said inflation underrated there, which I think was a great phrase to hear. And the best one so far, complexify as well. I'm going to steal that from you, if you don't
Go
mind.
ahead.
Look, what kinds of things are the really canny investors, the real smart investors doing differently with their money in today's economy?
I think there's been a very, very noticeable shift from the traditional forms of, and I won't call it investment, I'll call it saving, right? Very, very, and we've noticed this. And again, I will accredit technology for this. I will actually accredit information and media and all of that stuff because investors are now that much more aware of different choices that they have. And I wouldn't even call them investors, really. I would say, it's someone that's probably wanting to set up an investment portfolio, someone that's just stepping into into that stage of their life where they're saying, I'd rather, how can I save this money more effectively than just put it in a fixed deposit interest rate account? And there are so many more diversified options available to them. But what I have noticed is a lot of people, specifically, the younger working population, now coming up to you and talking to you about, oh, but should we be holding some stuff in AI energy, or should we be holding some stuff in industries that you probably wouldn't have heard about before? Which a great one that came to me the other day by a client is, what do you think about the nuclear recycling sector? And I thought, wow, you wouldn't have heard stuff like this 5 or 10 years ago. So it is, investors are becoming much more savvy to a lot of the other options available to them. It's no longer just brick, mortar, and deposits.
It must push you as well. When somebody says to you, when a client demands you, what do you think about nuclear recycling? You must be thinking, oh, okay, scramble, get some information. But it must be a real bonus for you. A learning bonus.
I tell you, it's absolutely, it's so gratifying and humbling, the experience. And I say this, pre-COVID and post-COVID was such a different world for anybody in the investment landscape. And post-COVID we have literally unlearned a lot of the fundamentals to relearn new fundamentals that fit in this new world of investing. I tell you, the funniest one, it's probably a bit of humor for your guests listening, is when my 8-year-old nephew comes up to me and says, Pokemon cards are the new way to go. And I'm thinking, gosh, that's another form of investment now.
The thing is, he's probably right.
He is.
There'll be, if you keep those cards in good order and look after them in a few years.
That's what I mean.
Like baseball cards, aren't
Well,
they?
there we go.
Yeah, okay. So your 8-year-old nephew, good investment. Can we get him in next week? Look, I wanted to ask you about risk, because risk is that thing. You hear this phrase all the time in investing, personal investing in particular, the risk versus reward. I'm going to say conundrum, actually, because it's an eternal issue, isn't it? When we talk about risk, what does that really mean? How does that manifest itself when somebody's managing, their career or their business?
I honestly think, and not to sound like a cop-out for this answer, but I think risk is so subjective for where you are. What financial stage of your life are you at, right? Are you at that point where you've done all the hard work and now you just want to protect this fortress? At that point, your level of exposure cannot be the same as someone that's 28 years old, ready to enter the market. They've got about 30 years ahead of them for work, and sure, growth is a little bit more on their side. Ergo, risk is a little bit on their side.
Sure.
So I think it's so subjective. And This is kind of where I always sit with clients and I say you need to have an advisor that listens to you, that has heard your objectives, heard where you are, heard what you want to achieve, and heard how palatable can we make it for you to get to that point. But I would definitely say, I mean, kind of being a little bit generic about this, is whilst in this geopolitical climate, I would be definitely implementing, risk diversifying measures in a portfolio. So get your staples in, get your standards in, make sure you've got that diversified broad range investment, that you're not just chasing one particular sector, but you've got a good premise there. But on the other end, I would also say that no, there is opportunity for growth, because what a phenomenal time to be alive where we've just scratched the surface of AI. We haven't yet seen the full integration, into utilities, banking, healthcare, which is such a huge, I mean, it's an untapped area. So I would argue that you're kind of sitting at this beautiful point where, yes, it does look a bit scary out there, but at the same time, there is a lot of growth opportunity too.
But don't be too frightened. I mean, the thing is, life is a risk, isn't it? Every day you cross a road, you take a risk. So I guess that's the way to look at it, really. AI excites you, doesn't it?
I think it's very, very interesting to look at it from very different channels. And I think what excites me more is understanding where, as a world and as a market, we're moving in today. I mean, you're not just you're no longer sitting at a point where you're just talking about a bunch of companies coming up. You actually have governments and sovereigns that are co-investors now. So that to me kind of says that this isn't a phase. You're not looking at something that will kind of fizzle and blow over. You're looking at something that you're going to require infrastructure, you're going to require energy, you're going to require that intellectual manpower to go behind it. So I think it's the internet, but just on steroids.
Okay. I think you might be right, actually. But the thing is, it's here now, and it's already part of our lives. I mean, for anybody in education, I've got two kids, both at university, two young adults, I suppose I should say. And both AI is just a part of, it's just where it is.
Yeah, yeah.
There's nothing novel about it particularly.
No, not to them. And this is
Yeah.
what I find fascinating, right, Tim, is again, you kind of sit with the younger guys and you think, gosh, think about this, is jobs that are going to exist 20 years from now haven't even been created yet. And that's kind of where, to me, that's what excites me about AI, is the 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 opportunities that it could potentially unfold. I don't even think we're there yet. And specifically, not just AI, but robotics, the unmanned services side of things. It it could be pretty monumental.
All right, then. So let me ask you something about financial mistakes, common financial mistakes that you see people make. And the backdrop to this whole conversation is the headlines, the unpredictability. Perhaps that's not something new. Perhaps that's just how, 'twas ever that way, I suppose. But what are the common sort of financial mistakes you see people making or have seen recently?
Two, panicking and not doing something about entering the markets.
So nothing new, really, at all.
Nothing new.
Yeah.
It's the same old, age old, same story, just a different era. But whenever something, I mean, we had COVID, and then we had, the inflation rises and the interest rate rises of 2022 and the great big market sell-off. But had you done nothing, had you just done nothing about any of that, you would have still been sitting in a very, very pretty position right now. And that's always my point, is when you are investing, don't chase hype and don't chase headlines.
Mm.
Build your investments based on the traditional fundamentals. Buy good quality businesses. And when you buy good quality businesses, the idea behind them is you have done the due diligence to understand, are they capable to weather the storm? If they are, then don't do anything about it. Don't panic. But I think the greater risk for me today is somebody that's sitting on the sidelines and looking at this and saying, oh, I'm not going to enter. It's a bit too inflated. It's a bit too high.
Sure.
I won't do it. That's a greater risk.
There's no time like the present, is there? Yeah, okay. Don't believe the hype was good advice in the 80s. It's as good advice now as it was then. We have about 30 seconds. If you haven't reviewed your financial strategy recently, and I think this is really important to look at what you're doing, to keep on top of what you're doing, apart from now, when should you start reviewing it?
I would argue that that is a job that you should assign a professional to do. And if it's a professional doing it, then I can assure you it is every day. And it should be done every day because you're looking at things. When you're reviewing things, doesn't necessarily mean you're taking actions against it, or you're changing things around, but you've got a good eye on it. You know what's happening in the market. You know what's happening. If something requires a change, it shouldn't be done in the rearview mirror. It should be done proactively. So find a good professional that you trust, that you know that when you sleep, they're working hard enough to make sure you sleep peacefully.
I like it. Payal Trehan is a partner, a senior investment strategist with the Michele Carby Practice. I've enjoyed talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Appreciate you coming in. Mirror Business FM, this is The Morning Drive. Get in touch with us. Let us know what you think on social media. And don't forget, wherever you get your podcasts from, just look for Mirror Business FM for more.